happening, everybody? Yeah, it's me, Minister Q. We're going to go ahead on and get it going on like we were talking about before on how we're going to go ahead on and read the contract for Black America. The contract for Black America. What we were talking about the other day was the fact that there was a lot of talk going on about Ice Cube. So I checked it out and I heard all this stuff, and it was about this contract he was writing for Black America, and people were talking about how he's not the spokesman, who he represent. It was ignorant. He Uncle Tom. I understand D.L. Hughley, and we're going to look at some of those things. D.L. Hughley had something to say, but what I wanted to do was set it straight and get it going here. What we want to do is take a look at everything. So before you can talk trash about something, you at least need to know what you're talking about. So what I decided to try to do with you today is to go ahead on and let's go ahead on and try to read this thing together. Now, here it is right here. If you want to go to it, all you got to do is Google the words, a contract with Black America. You'll see Ice Cube up there. You go on right on to it. As you can see here in this contract that we've got here, and I'll go ahead and let you be able to see the whole thing here. So I'm going to get rid of some stuff real quick for you, and including my little picture here. So like I'm saying, all we need to do now is go ahead on and let you see this stuff for the way it is for yourself here. Now, as we can say, the contract with Black America, the Preface. Again, it's by Professor Derek Hamilton, and it looks like Henry Cohen. Two professors helped him with this. The Preface says this contract with Black America strikes at the heart of racism and presents a blueprint to achieve racial economic justice. It was written in the backdrop of the killing of George Floyd. And as we all know, that was something that was very tragic for all of us. All of the deaths of the black people over the years, of people of color, of all kinds, the deaths by the police departments, misrepresentation, lying, just straight lying. I myself am a victim. So let's look at this thing here now. The killing of George Floyd, which set a wave of protest not seen since the civil rights era of 1950s and the 1960s, and a global pandemic in which the black mortality rate is more than double the whites. The white rate, in which 45%, nearly half of the black-owned businesses closed, that the impact is something presumably random. Such a pandemic, however, is catastrophic, can be linked to one's racial identity, is highly problematic. Let me read that again. That the impact of something so presumably random, such as a pandemic, however catastrophic it is, if it can be linked to one's racial identity, then this is a highly problematic situation we're dealing with today. Okay? And further evidence that as a nation, we're failing miserably. Now, this link to a larger political and economic vulnerability, whether we're in a pandemic or not, the immoral devaluation of black lives, so-called black lives, has been ingrained in America's political economy and is long overdue for a reckoning. First points then in the preface, laying it out what he's going to do. Authentic agency is grounded in resources, and America's unjust racial wealth gap is rooted in a history that has privileged white people with financial advantages to buy crucial, additional, and intergenerational advantages for themselves and their children. Government policy and literal government giveaways provided them with the finance, education, land, and infrastructure to accumulate and pass down wealth from one generation to the next. Now, contrast that. Black people were largely excluded, and when we were able to accumulate land and enterprise, it was subject to seizure by the government. Complicit theft, fraud, and terror. Now, this contract with Black America understands that this disparity is dramatic and that changes on the margin won't cut it. To reverse decades and generations of discrimination, we need a bold overhaul of our local laws and economy. This contract rejects the racist and unsubstantiated rhetoric that ignorance, so-called grit, and personal responsibility are the sources of our racial disparity, along with the accompanying neoliberal paternalism model in which government attempts to coerce or incentivize insinuated defective black people to behave accordingly to make better decisions. It is abundantly clear that the racial wealth gap has nothing to do with black behavior and everything to do with white privilege. So as a nation, we are finally ready to reverse our enduring and immoral plight of racism and authentically live up to the creed that all men and women are created equal. I do not know, but we have witnessed across 50 states and pretty much the entire globe civil protesters shouting with celerity, "Black Lives Matter." Now, okay, younger generations and social movements may be redefining economic good to embrace the principles of morality, humanity, and sustainability. This contract with Black America is a patriotic pathway to promote our shared prosperity and achieve racial economic justice. That's the prefix. Now, in that alone, where do you see Uncle Tom? In this statement, where don't you see him trying to talk for black people? So-called black people again. I don't see it, and I agree. And I feel like this is a pretty good start here. So now I won't put the brother down yet. Will you? Now, as I said, let's go ahead on and read the introduction then. A contract with Black America, and I'm going to try to keep my comments so I can read it and then we can discuss it if you choose. Otherwise, I'm just going to read it to you. For those people who can go back and look at it for themselves. We'll take our time with this thing. Not tonight, but over the course of this thing. Now, let's see. All right, the introduction ain't nothing. A contract with Black America, addressing racial inequality. Now, who's saying that there's no racial inequality? Because everybody should be in agreement that there is a racial inequality going on for people of color and people without melanin. There is a situation going on and has been for a long time. So let's deal with it. Let's see what he's saying. After 400 years of unequal treatment, Black Americans have had enough with gradual reform in a nation that prides itself as the world's greatest democracy. While well-intentioned solutions may have been tried, it is simply too much to ask and oppress people to stay patient. To finally create the more perfect union all Americans deserve, it is time for a complete paradigm shift in how we run our institutions and operate our country. Now, while this contract with Black America may seem radical to some, the result will be a harmonious society that benefits everyone rather than the more radical alternative, which is watching the great American experiment come apart at the seams. The problems facing America are too deep and wide to simply reform one area or another. Long-lasting solutions demand a comprehensive, thorough rethink of America so that each new approach in each area supports the success of the others. This contract with Black America will provide conceptual approaches in several areas, including addressing Black opportunity and representation, bank lending and finance reform, judicial and public policy reforms, expansion on the 13th Amendment rights, police reform, reform in Hollywood, and an approach to our Confederate past. It will then present more in-depth proposals showing how these guiding principles can be put into action, first through a plan for neo-reconstruction, not just reconstruction, but neo-reconstruction, followed by the America's Job Pact, a plan that addresses jobs and education. Now that's the introduction, folks. As I'm saying before here, we're dealing with a situation here where a lot of folks like to talk, but they ain't informed. And so they just say stuff anyhow. And when you're reading this, you can't find no Uncle Tom. And you don't even know who Uncle Tom is. You don't find nobody who's trying to just look out for himself. Let me reiterate the issues that are going to be being dealt with in here according to this situation. This contract with a Black America will provide conceptual approaches in several areas, including addressing, let me get you back there. I didn't know I wasn't letting y'all see that. Let me go back there. This contract with Black America will provide conceptual approaches in several areas, including addressing Black opportunity and representation, bank lending and finance reform, judicial and public policy reforms, expansions on 13th Amendment rights. Y'all don't, if you haven't seen it yet, why don't you check out 13th? That it's on, I think it's HBO. We had that information for you, but I believe it's HBO 13th. It tells you about the 13th Amendment. Believe it or not, slavery is legal in America, long as you've been convicted of a crime. The rest of you still living in the Jim Crow and the black codes and the color of law of that. Now, let's finish that up. Now, the Confederate past, police reform right here, police reform, reform in Hollywood, he gonna deal with them devils up there, and an approach to the Confederate past. Why does somebody who lost the war still get to celebrate? They ain't letting none of them countries we fought fly their flags here. So why is these white folks still flying these Confederate flags? Y'all lost. You lost the war. You don't get to fly the flag no more. Y'all been beaten. You supposed to now assimilate into the culture like everybody else. No, the election showing us that. And good God Almighty, don't y'all forget Florida racist. Don't you forget Florida something else. And we live here. Good gracious, goodness gracious, look at who we got. Look how them folks showed out here in Florida. They believe in that man that's about to go. I don't know. I ain't gonna say yet, but he about to go. He ain't affect me now. He ain't do no put some money in my pocket, but I don't want to see him there. Y'all can't be mad at this what this man is saying. Here, let me finish it. It will then present a more in-depth proposal showing how these guiding principles can be put into action. So he's going to bring a plan. He's going to present the idea and show us how to bring it in, okay? He also going to talk about what we need to have, which is the reconstruction really to happen. It got stymied early after the reconstruction started. And then he's got something called America's Job Pack, a plan that addresses jobs and education, and he actually is dealing with that. It's something else, y'all. So this is something I think that we need to delve into more. If you haven't read it, you want to read it, we're going to read it together. Let's look at representation and see how long it is. And we can go through this and we'll call it for the night. We'll go through one. So we've been on about I feel we can go on with this here. Let's just deal with the fact of representation according to this then. All right. Black opportunity and representation. The case for Neo-Reconstruction. Neo-Reconstruction is an aggressive initiative meant to redress past wrongs systematically imposed on Black Americans economically throughout many generations. Wrongs that have had a severe negative impact on African Americans, both economically and educationally. The specific case and plan for Neo-Reconstruction is presented later in the document. A commission will immediately be formed and empowered to quickly put the plan into action. Separately, a plan will also be devised to make so-called Native Americans whole within that same timeline. Education will help this out. Now, Black Americans will be compensated for the value of work contributed by the ancestors, while Native Americans will get back the true land value or the land promised to them in various treaties. For Black Americans to be eligible, they must provide documentation proving their descent from at least one enslaved person. They must also prove that they have identified as Black or African American for at least 10 years prior to the institution of the reparations program. Now, if there's a red flag for me, it's right there. How you proving that you got a slave in your family? Where your record at? Where's the record that you gonna present to somebody to say that you had a slave in it? Now this is what we looking for right now. I ain't found it yet. Now some of y'all know that information and you can go back. Now, if you can, then you need to find out where they came from and all this. But he's putting this as a condition for the reparation. So you got to be able to provide documentation proving your descent from at least one enslaved person. I don't know how we're supposed to do that. Now, all of us can prove that for at least 10 years prior to the institution of the reparation program, we had been identified as African American because they told us to identify as African American and we put it down. You put it down on your job applications. You put it down on your housing applications. And anything else you were doing. Your military, all of that. When you go to the doctor. All of this. So you got proof that you've been claiming African American. But it's not a race, y'all. Because African American is a status. Supposedly. Race is based on nationality. Isn't it? So what nation carries the country Africa America? Or Black? Or Negro? Or nigger? Or any of that? There's Niger, however you want to say it. All right? That's in the continent of Africa, which has many countries in it. But where's ours? So how are we going to do that, Q? That's what I need to find out right there from it. Now, let's keep going with his second point in this introduction. This point one on representation. So he's saying that we should at least be able to be compensated for the work that our ancestors done. And that the so-called other Indians, because most of y'all got probably Indians too, should be getting some land or something too. Or the value back for the land in the treaties we know they broke and they admit now. Let's see what it say here in the second point. Affirmative action for all secondary schools, colleges, and university, public and private, black enrollment must meet or exceed the percentage of the black population nationwide, which is 13.4% according to ICE. In addition, if the black population of the county the school is located in is greater than 13.4%, the enrollment must be increased to that higher percentage. All right, I like that sliding scale. However, 25% black enrollment will satisfy the county requirement if the school can prove they are a national school with less than 30% enrollment from the state in which the school is located. The same guidelines that apply to students will also apply to the faculty. In the case of schools not deemed national, which are in the counties or states where the black population is less than 13.4, such as Idaho or Montana, and etc., the percentages required can be decreased down to a minimum of 5%. For clarity, enrollments of black Americans greater than the minimum thresholds is required is always permitted. So if you got more than that in there, they let you do that. Third point, the local funding for schools will be determined by an equal per student fund for all schools throughout the entire state. There is also extra funding for disabled and disadvantaged students. Change source of funding from property taxes to per student in line with the practices of most advanced nations. Otherwise, poor communities suffer from underfunding, perpetuating the cycle of poor education. Third point, I think, was it the fourth point? 1, 2, 3, 4. Mandatory civil rights and anti-racism classes in all elementary schools. Black scholars will write the textbooks and the curriculum adopted for these classes. So he's saying, let the black professors that are qualified write it. They'll have a more insight on the deal than some white person trying to tell our stuff. That just makes common sense. Institute the Black History 365 curriculum, African history, highlighting the civilizations of Mali, Ghana, Songhai, Egypt, Ethiopia, Nubia, Zimbabwe, and others are incorporated into all schools' world history and social studies curriculum. Wow. So you got to study Caesar and you got to study one of them African kings over there. Or the modern ones over there in Ghana, because he's doing it. Now, black representation on all government civil rights investigative bodies. So far, all the investigative bodies are all white men talking about civil rights for black people. That's just stupid. Now, reform gerrymandering. Districts cannot be designed to minimize the impact of the black vote. Point 7 or 8, what is it? 4, 5, 6, 7. More polling sites in minority and black neighborhoods so that the number of polling stations provides equal access to the black voters as they do in white and other communities. Lack of access violates the 1965 Voters' Rights Act, and the act should be amended to give it more teeth since it is currently not working. Juneteenth to become a federal holiday, and equal health care facilities in all neighborhoods regardless of the demographics. A formal admission and apology to black Americans for wrongdoing. Oh my goodness. This was all covered in the Black Opportunity and Representation part of the contract with Black America. So now you've heard it. You can play it back for yourselves. You can go on YouTube or Facebook. Check it out. I think it should be streaming on Facebook Live right now also. Don't forget, we're right here on YouTube. Please, you can go to the YouTube channel of youtube.com/C Richard Gray, in spite of it all. All right, and you can pull us up right through like that right there, or you can just simply hang out and subscribe to the YouTube channel you're on, or the Facebook that you're on. Go ahead and send that record. We'll get you in there and start letting you know when we're going to be reading the rest. We're going to come back with part 2 of what the Contract for Black America is saying. Part 2 is about lending reforms. We'll deal with 2, 3, and 4 the next time we come back to you. For now, I just want to say to you again, it's been my pleasure speaking with you today. Again, you're speaking with Minister Q, Richard Gray, right here. I want to say, Shank, keep it up, man. I love you, man. Giving a shout out to that junior that I got there. That man is all right with me. April, you better be in here with me the next time, because this was your idea. So you're going to be sitting right here too, and maybe get you to read 3 or 4 1 yourself. In the meantime, we love you. Stay safe from everything, y'all. Stay with the Most High, y'all, and continue to walk in Torah. Shabbat Shalom.